Hey, my name is Annika Koch, and today I am going to tell you about how to write a poetry explication. Your first step is asking yourself what you should start yourself off with. But first, give yourself a moment to freak out though, because this is not going to be an easy project. Now consider the basic things you should look for in your poem. Does the author ring a bell? Research him or her to get an understanding of themselves as a person. Next, what time was the poem written in? The time period a poem is written in can heavily influence what it's about and at just about everything else. Then, look for a rhyme scheme. Whether or not there is one or not can give a lot of information about the poem and its contents. And lastly, keep your eye out for literary devices. Poetry is filled with them, and they are key to helping you understand, and they come in many variations. Now you are past the basic starting point. Now, to develop what you generally think is key, and to help you get to researching. One can conduct research on many different templates. The internet would probably be considered the fastest and easiest because of its accessibility. Books containing information on one's poem or author can also be useful, but overall, your mind is the greatest source of thought. Researching other people's thoughts, though, can be helpful in building a stronger opinion of one's own previous thoughts. Finally, after some light read-throughs of your poem and you have a general idea of it, it's time to dig deep. It's time to annotate. Annotating includes discovering literary devices such as alliteration, knowing the point of view, and pinpointing the overall theme of the poem. Paraphrasing, which is like fast summarizing, is a key. Pinpointing why the author chose some certain words will guide you and help you. And numbering the lines for quick reference will help you just know when to get, and getting the overall feel the speaker of the poem gives. There are many other components, but these cannot be ignored. Before you start writing your paper, you must write your thesis. A thesis must state clearly what will be discussed in your paper, and if it doesn't make sense, the rest of your paper might not, so be very clear. There are two types: blueprint thesis, which is a very direct statement, and expository, which goes in a little more into depth, but those are two very easy options. Now it is time to give a shape to the rest of your poem. It is time to make a general outline. Basic information one should know is that a poetry explication should be 5 paragraphs long, 2 of which are going to be the intro and the conclusion to your paper. The other 3 are going to be the body paragraphs, which your paper will also include your thesis and your intro. So this is what your basic outline for your poetry explication should look like. So first you're going to have your introduction, which is going to first start with your hook, which can come in a couple different forms as we talked about. Then you're going to have your title, author, and publication date, which are very key to include. Then at the end of it, you are going to have your thesis statement. Remember that your thesis must be at the end. Now your body, you're going to talk about your 3 main focuses that you mentioned in your theses. Well, these are interchangeable, and just make sure they're in the order you said in the thesis. And if you are having a hard time combining some, just put some together that makes sense, like tone and sound effects, which can easily combine if you are trying to make 4 paragraphs but want to stick to 3. In the end, you're going to have your conclusion, where you're going to restate your thesis using different words, and then you're going to summarize your main points that you made to round out the end, and then you're going to talk about a theme in life that the poem relates to, just to leave the reader on a good ending point, but don't introduce new information at all. Now we have come to the point of creating the body paragraphs. Keep in mind that you may choose to write the intro paragraph first though. It's all up to you. Above all things, you need to know how to write an academic paragraph. Academic paragraphs are 8 to 10 sentences long, and you want to stick around that number. So you start with your topic sentence, and this will introduce what's going to be talked about. And then next you'll have supporting sentences followed by evidence sentences. These are just backing up everything you're talking about, and you'll end your paragraph with a conclusion sentence. And that is how you make a body paragraph. Keep in mind the length of your paragraphs when writing your body paragraphs. So a paragraph academically should be about 3/4 of the page long. Shorter paragraphs are not going to look good on your paper, so keep that in mind. Keywords such as many are supposed to be used in topic sentences. Transitional phrases such as accordingly are used in the middle of your body paragraph, and conclusive words such as finally and overall are supposed to be used in your conclusion sentences. Now it is time to write your introduction paragraph, if you have chosen to do this next. So, a hook is made up of either a fact, a story, or a quotation, and it sets the aim for your paper right at the beginning. Your intro should be 4 to 5 sentences long, but you can make it longer depending on your choosing, and also include the title, author, and publication date. Finally, we come to the last part of writing your paper, the conclusion. This is the last thing the reader will remember, so it is worth the time of making it great. Remember that you're going to need to restate your thesis, but not in the same way. Use very different word choice, but make it really cool. Make it slightly more detailed also than it was before. And remember to summarize your points in your conclusion. Don't introduce new ideas at all. Just leave them on a good ending point that they have learned something and have a newfound knowledge. Because it's as if they ate a 5-course meal. Leave them feeling great with that dessert. And point out some themes that relate to the poem and one's life. Now we have come to the final stage of making a poetry explication. It's now time to edit, revise, and proof your essay continuously. A good number to stick around is 5 for the number of people you let edit your paper, which is neither too few or too many. Have other people edit it though, not just yourself. This is key because no matter how good you are at writing, mistakes can fall through the cracks. Other ideas and other ways to rephrase some of your writing is resting in the minds of others. Seek their help to better your paper. And while editing your paper, read it aloud several times. This makes it easier to point out phrasing issues. And remember to check carefully for grammatical errors. To a professional trained teacher, they will stick out like a sore thumb. So try to catch as many as you can. Spell check is useful, but not always correct. And this brings my video and our time together to an end. I hope this was helpful and that you have a better understanding of how to write a poetry explication.
Hey, so I was actually kidding about the video being done, and I just wanted to take these last couple of minutes and truly explain my thought process while annotating and writing my paper. And so my poem was Evening Concert St. Chapelle by John Updike, and I'll take a moment to read this. So, here we go. The celebrated windows flamed with light, directly pouring north across the scene. We rustled into place. Then violins vaunting Vivaldi's strident strength, them Brahms seemed to suck with their passionate sweetness, bit by bit, the vigor from the red, the blazing blue, so that the listening eye saw suddenly the thick black lines in shapes of shield and cross and strut and braze that held the holy glowing fantasy together. The music surged, the glow became a milk, a whisper to the eye, a glimmer ebbed, until our beating hearts, our violins were cased in thin but solid sheets of lead. So yeah, that was my poem. And so something that is definitely huge in my poem was imagery. And first I'd like to talk a little more, I guess, about how I quickly do things when I annotate, when I first am reading. So definitely number your lines, which is on the other side. That can really help you quickly reference stuff. And so alliteration is something I always look for, and this poem tended to have a lot, such as violins vaunting Vivaldi's strident strength. There's 2 examples in that, and the alliteration in the poem actually really helps with the movement of not only the music, but of the poem altogether. It just keeps it going. And other things I look for are strong describing words. Any poem can say burn and not have it mean much, but when an author uses words such as flamed or blazing, it just really gives you that more kapow feel. And Updike definitely does that, and there's tons more words that he goes into a lot more detail with. But just a couple notes that I wanted to touch on was definitely look for a rhyme scheme. And I know I talked about that earlier, but a rhyme scheme really can tell you a lot about the poem. Now, this poem doesn't, and I think it was probably because music is unrestrained, so I think Updike didn't want to restrain his poem like music, and with having to find certain words to rhyme with each other at the end. Also, know who the speaker is, because that is just so key. You have to know who you're getting this point of view from. And point of view is important because a different point of view and a different type of speaker can change the whole poem, because the feelings you get from them can be totally different from the feelings you get from another person. Because, this guy gives you the feeling, the speaker gives you the feeling of just wow, edge of your seat feel. And another guy could be super depressing about him, say it's not as good as Beethoven, but he doesn't do that. It's just really admiring of Vivaldi himself and Brahms. Another thing is to look at how the lengths of the lines, make sure that they're around even, because if there's a longer line, definitely look into that, because that could definitely mean something. And I look for feelings, like I kind of said earlier, overall feelings just that you get. And when writing your paper, just make sure you have a really good hook, because your introduction is the first impression. It's like meeting your boss on the first day. If you don't make that good first impression, you're probably not going to get the job. And it's just like what the intro is to the poetry explication. Your body paragraphs, I focused in my paper about personification, tone, and alliteration. Those were some of my three literary devices that I focused on that in mine. And, you know, just really make sure that you state clearly in your thesis with a firm standing what your paper is going to be about. And in your conclusion, just remember that that is the lasting impression. Now, first is going to get you somewhere. A lasting impression is the afterthought. So just make sure you really push it in that, and make sure you leave a really good feeling with the reader, with a really good restatement of your thesis in different words, and just make them feel good that they read and they learned something. And so, yeah, this was my poem. I really enjoyed it. Actually, I mean, I felt pretty scared at the beginning, but I'm sure we all do sometimes when reading poems. But anyways, thank you for sitting through an extra couple of minutes listening to me talk and actually seeing my face on the video. And thank you for watching. And yeah, bye.